So here's probably a better map than I just drew. Let's just check my work. So one of the things that happens after World War I is this is lost to Germany. Why would Germany want this? This is known as Danzig, by the way. Why would Germany want that?
Imports.
Yeah, exports and imports. They need that. They need that trip to the ocean, and this is Poland later on. Okay, and they get locked out of that, and that really pisses them off. You got Italy down here, who in World War I is an ally of the good guys. World War II, they become part of the Third Reich, the Axis powers. So they switch over. Spain doesn't really get involved a lot. France, of course, does. When we talk about World War I, we're talking about here and here. That's it. When we talk about World War II, we're talking about everywhere. Everywhere. Was the U.S. attacked in World War II?
By the Japanese.
Yeah. Pearl Harbor, but after that, they took some of the Aleutian Islands. You know that tail off of Alaska? Those islands? They took one of them. And you know what the Americans said? It's a rock, have it. We don't want it. It pissed off some people, but we're like, we don't care. Have the rocks. We don't care. Just take it. No, we don't. It doesn't have any significance to us. So they just kind of let them have it. So here's the Austro-Hungarian Empire. This is a big beast at the time. Okay, but it's kind of a sick beast at the time. You got Romania, Bulgaria, Greece, and these guys show up a little bit more later on. But this battle here kind of distracts the Germans, and then when these guys have their rebellion and the communists take over, they pull out. They kill the Tsar, the Tsarina, and the kids. Horrible death. They basically took them out in the middle of nowhere, hid them in a house, walked in to a room that was all stripped bare and just shot them. Shot the kids and killed the husband and wife. Horrible death. So these guys are out, so everything pretty much focuses over here. And as the Germans come in here, they basically fight to a standstill. They can't go anywhere, so they just start digging in. And they dig these things called trenches. And the trenches weren't straight across because they were using a lot of artillery. They were zigzagged because they didn't want the bombs just going straight in. They kind of zigzagged to help hide each other. The one thing, and we'll talk about these later on, the Germans really kind of had luxury trenches where the Westerners, the Allies, didn't. They just kind of dug a hole. But the Germans actually built little apartments in the trenches in a lot of places. They're actually pretty decent. So, who are our players? Well, Franz Joseph, he's the head of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. This guy right here, he's Frenchy French, of course. So this is Russia, okay, and this is Great Britain. And this guy is Italy. And Turkey's involved in this too for a while. And then Wilhelm over in Germany. Okay, so these are pretty much the, these are Western, or the Allies, and these are the Axis power, okay? So Turkey actually joins up with Austria-Hungary and Germany. And a guy by the name of Winston Churchill leads an attack on Turkey because he thinks they're very weak and gets killed. That ended Churchill's career, by the way. So basically, we're talking about this area right here, where most of the war happened. Here's Serbia, where the Austro-Hungarian Empire was involved, and they were in rebellion. Some crazy stuff went there. So you can kind of see, but like I said, most of this goes on here. There's a little bit that goes on in other places, but because we are so ethnocentric and so proud of our own history, we don't talk about that very much in this country. So what did we contribute, or how did this arms race start up? Well, when we talk about percent of income, how much we're going to spend on defenses, Germany was boom. Remember, the Prussians are in charge. This is a military group of people. These are people that got a lot of cool tanks, a lot of cool rockets, and they want to use them. They also have very big egos. Okay? They don't think anybody can beat them. And they know for a fact that these other countries aren't spending a whole lot on munitions, on the military. So when we talk about how much is thrown at it, you can see like 3/4 of every dollar goes into the military in Germany, not so much in these other countries. So I don't know if you can see it there, but there's actually shoulders there that are kind of built into that. Kind of cool. So Europe's a powder keg. These whole Balkan areas, so that's this area down here. It's a powder keg. You got a lot of little rebel forces. You got Macedonia, Albania. These are all the Baltics. Romania, these are all Eastern Bloc countries. Was what we would call them today, or Eastern Europe. And there was a lot of rebellion, and they didn't really like being told what to do. So what started all this stuff? Well, there's the Duke and the Duchess. And you got to realize his dad didn't really like him. So when he gets killed, I think his dad was on a cruise, and he's like, I'm going to finish the cruise, and then I'll go deal with the funeral. That's how much he cared. But this knucklehead didn't think anybody could hurt him. They were very naive, and they go into Serbia down here, which is the state of rebellion, but they're going to fix everything because they're going to show up and be nice. And everybody's going to love them. And there's a militant group called the Black Hand, led by, or one of the members was a guy by the name of Gabriel Princip. And boom, there he is shooting him. He comes out of the local Walgreens. There he is. And his gun's actually in the museum too, or one like it. I don't know if it's the actual gun. And shoots him, boom, blood and brains goes on her, and then he shoots her. And they're pretty much dead because this guy took a wrong turn. Okay. Now realize that, like I said earlier, they'd already made attacks on these guys. And they just didn't get the hint. They were not wanted in Serbia. So after this happens, nothing really happens. Nobody seems to care. It's no big deal. Okay, people are on cruise ships. People are doing business. Nobody really thinks about it. It's kind of a weird lull that happens here. So this is basically, this little incident right here is credited with really changing the world. And it did, but nobody knew it at the time. Everybody was pretty oblivious to what a big impact this thing was going to have. And it was more of an excuse than anything else. Because remember, Prussia's ready to use their toys. Okay? Everybody's already itching and ticked off at each other. And they're just all kind of looking for an excuse. They were itching for a fight. There's Princip right there. They grabbed him right away.
I saw a meme with a picture of him and it said, "Local boy ruins everything."
Yeah, literally. Yeah. He did change the world, no doubt. Crown of the Ages, and this cartoon is actually pretty good because everybody's pointing a finger at somebody else. Italy doesn't care. But Serbia's pointing at Austria, Austria's pointing at Russia's pointing at Belarus, the English are pointing back. So basically, everybody's pointing at everybody else. It's nobody's fault, but everybody's mad at everybody else.
Italy's
And these
just
alliances start to kick in. Because everybody's got alliances to go to the aid of these other countries. And all kinds of crazy stuff starts to happen. And the war drums start beating, and Germany gets on this thing quick. And they have this thing called the Schlieffen Plan. That's very, very Prussian. The Schlieffen Plan. And they not only use this in World War I, but they use this in World War II. And they get within, actually, a few miles of Paris. They can kind of see the Eiffel Tower, but they don't actually go into Paris. World War II, they go into Paris. Hitler's goose-stepping down the middle of the street. But this time, they don't really go into Paris. They kind of circle around here. They could have gone in, they didn't. But eventually, they get stonewalled back up here on the border, and they start to dig into these trenches. Down here is Verdun, which is where a huge battle starts to happen and just go on, and hundreds of thousands of people died. There's the Battle of the Somme up here. We'll talk about that. But basically, everybody's dug in here. Now, as soon as the Germans march into Belgium, Belgium has a treaty with this country. Who do you think that country is?
The British.
British. And as soon as they step foot in Belgium, Belgium is a neutral country. They're like, we don't want anything to do with this. Well, how the heck are these guys going to get down there without going through either Luxembourg or Belgium? They're not going to, so they just storm in there. And that draws the British in. Okay? Because the British and the French really didn't get along that well, but they got along well enough. And once they go into Belgium, it's like, all bets are off, dude.